Howdy folks, how we doing out there? Doc Severson with you here today. We have what's called Trade School here at Ready Set Crypto. We typically do these on, well, quite often Fridays. And so we have some special guests here today with us, as well as our premium members. So hello, everybody. Hope you guys are doing okay. I'm going to make sure, before I get started here, I want to make sure that everybody can hear me and see me and everything is looking good with the broadcast. Otherwise, I will stop and make sure it works. But otherwise, we're starting to warm up here a little bit in the upper U.S. And as a result of that, we got another 6 inches of snow here today, getting rid of that polar vortex. Hey guys, how we doing out there? So folks in Australia are like, mate, I don't know what you're talking about. It's the middle of summer down here. All right. Let's see. Okay, so stay-at-home dad says we are good here. All right, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to big chart, little doc, make sure that we have the largest possible screen for you guys and get going. All right, super. All right, so today what I want to do is kind of an extension of what I did earlier this week, which is the 4 powerful rules for crypto trading. I want to do a live demo today on the top 10. And when we get through the top 10, what I will do is I'll open it up here for your questions or any other coins that you want me to take a look at. Before I get into anything today, we don't need to go through this, right? You guys understand that this is not a hobby. This is actually serious stuff. So treat it like that. So I am assuming that you've already watched my class from the other day, like Trade Like a Pro, the 4 powerful rules for charting crypto. If you haven't, then this is all going to go kind of quickly. So you might want to keep watching this, but then circle back and watch that from the other day. And you'll see that in our YouTube channel as well too. Hey, Carlton. Yeah, sometimes it's tough to be in Ohio. So today I'm going to use the 4 rules to evaluate the top 10 market cap crypto coins. And then I'll take your questions and or request to review chart. So if you're pounded away in the chat room asking questions, it's going to go right over my head. So maybe some of the premium members that are in the room here today can help out if you have just general questions or anything like that. But generally what I do is I'll wait for the end of this and then take your requests. We'll be here about 30 minutes or so. I'm going to get through this fairly quickly and then open it up for your questions. Okay, so remember what we talked about the other day is 4 rules. There's not that hard to remember. Rule number 1 is that larger time frames dominate the overall trend. Rule number 2 is that reversals come from the inside out and then they propagate higher in time frame. Rule number 2, reversals come from the inside out, propagate higher in time frame. Again, for those of you just joining us, I am Doc Severson. I did a presentation the other day, so I'm going to just extend that by going into live demo here today. So welcome aboard. And of course, welcome to our premium customers. That is rule number 2. Rule number 3, descending patterns break to the upside and vice versa. And then rule number 4 is that range contraction leads to range expansion. Range expansion leads to range contraction. Repeat that forever. There is no such thing as overbought and oversold in today's world. All right. Let's get into things. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to back out of the old PowerPoint and go straight into the chart. Want to make sure everything is working here. Okay, looks good. Okay, so I'm going to start off by going through numero uno, the big dog here, BTC. And isn't it funny? I mean, guys, I will look at this from time to time. I will look at these. This is part of TradingView. They've got headlines for whatever coin that you've got in there. And it's just amusing to go through some of these today because everybody is like all over the place trying to figure out what's going to happen next in the market. And people just waste so much ink on trying to figure out what's going to happen next. I got an idea for you guys. Why don't, instead of just blindly like going around listening to media, why don't you make up your own decisions based on what's happening with your price charts? And this is what I intend to do today. All right, so for BTC, let's look at this now. What do we have here? Rule number one says that larger time frames. So I'm going to kind of go through this with the different rules. Rule number one says larger time frames dominate the trend, and that has been the case now for quite some time. If we go out here to the weekly chart, we can see this. We've had a strong weekly downtrend in play really for the last year. And so it's no surprise when price continues. The surprises end up going to the downside. Surprises will go to the downside in a bear market like this with a strong weekly downtrend, right? And you'll see when we start to move into a weekly uptrend. Now, I'm going to move to rule number 4 here, range expansion. So we've had a nice, strong range expansion move in November. That led to exhaustion. So range expansion has been in range contraction for some time now. All right, for several weeks. So let's expand this out and make sure you guys can see what's going on here. Look at all these weekly candles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And we're starting to build up energy because that sideways pattern, that's where the spring gets wound up, right? So we're going to be trading inside of that weekly pattern. This is the context I talked about before. And oh, by the way, we're going to see a lot of these. We're going to see a lot of these with the same kind of pattern. We're going to see a lot of these with about the same type of pattern. So again, just a quick reminder, if you're just joining me here, if you have a question, please do me a favor, wait until the end of, I'm going to go through the top 10 coins, and then I'll open it up and say, what do you guys want me to look at? So I'll do this live, right? Like Bill O'Reilly, we'll do it live. Okay, so that is the context. Rule number 1 says larger time frames dominate the trend. Rule number 4 says range expansion goes to range contraction. And this is exactly what we've seen. Now, rule number 3 says descending patterns break to the upside. So we've got something kind of interesting going on here. And this is at the daily chart. So I've got the daily chart, and we've got this sort of slowly winding little wedge pattern to the downside. So rule number 3 says that descending patterns will eventually break to the upside. So what we're watching here is that, and in fact, you can even see this even better on something like the 5-hour chart. I'm going to spend a little bit more time on Bitcoin because this is sort of the de facto index for crypto. And then I'll kind of quickly go through the other top 10 because most of them look kind of the same. So what do we have to see for an uptrend? Remember, rule number 2, we haven't got to rule number 2 yet. Rule number 2 says for this downtrend to reverse, it's going to happen at a smaller time frame first, isn't it? And for that to reverse, what we'd have to see on Bitcoin versus the dollar, and this is on Bitfinex, it'll be about the same just or anywhere else, but we have to see, first of all, this descending trend line break, as well as the price printing a higher low and then a higher high, which is going to be versus the US dollar 35.80. So if that happens, we are going to have all of this energy, and there's energy on just about every time frame now, popping to the upside. Now, before you get too excited, this is still going to be a counter trend move on the weekly chart. If we do see, and again, this is not a prediction, but this is more of, this is what the character is giving us. It's unlikely that we're going to just break and just absolutely rocket to the downside right now in exhaustion. So with that in mind, we can trade within this range, within this consolidation on the weekly chart, and there's workable swings within there. So we might be able to get a move up to 4,200 or so, and that's going to be pretty significant. Again, that's a 600-point move that's on Bitcoin if we break that descending pattern. Rule number 3. Rule number 2 says reversals start from the inside out, and this is why I want to watch something like the 5-hour chart, or you can even watch the 1-hour chart. So the 1-hour chart is already reversed to the upside. So you can see this is higher highs and higher lows. So if you want to, if you have the time and attention, you can day trade these intraday, but I wouldn't chase after this one. It's in exhaustion right now. So to me, the 5-hour chart gives us the best view as far as the reversals. So again, I know I went through that really quickly. And if this is the first time that you're hearing this, you're like, what on earth? You just spat out 4 different rules and I don't know what you're talking about. Again, start from the top down. If you have trouble following this, start from the top down. Start from your larger time frames. Rule number 1, your larger time frames, and say, which way is the price going? And it's still going to the downside. But rule number 4 says range expansion goes to range contraction. So that's exactly what's happened for the last 9 weeks. So we're just playing within the context of a weekly consolidation pattern. Okay. Rule number 3 says, now we can go into some of the smaller time frames. Rule number 3 says that descending patterns break to the upside. So we might see this break to the upside and get up to maybe somewhere as high as 4,200, 4,400. And oh, by the way, and I put this in last night's newsletter, but just for grins here, I don't use this that often, but the MACD, again, I don't use this that often, guys, but the MACD is showing us some positive divergence here. So we're starting to stack the odds that we might see a little pop to the upside, which is going to get people all bullish again. And unfortunately, the larger time frames will kick in, but it's going to be a tradable swing. It's going to be a tradable swing. Okay, so let's go back to, I'm going to go back to this. I'm going to get rid of the Bollinger Bands. Don't need those today. All right, and so that's Bitcoin. That's Bitcoin. So right now, larger time frame, downside movement, right? So ultimately, this probably will head lower, but I'm thinking that we might get a little break to the upside first, but wait until we get that break at the levels that I talked about first. That will be your trade entry at that point, when we break the trend line and break above the recent high in the 5-hour chart. Okay, so guys, if you have requests for any coins that you want to look at, if you could please wait until I open it up and get through the top 10. Because otherwise what's going to happen, it's going to scroll right over and you're going to say that you're ignoring me. And I'm like, no, I can't see everything at once and I can't scroll back. So let's go to coin number 2. What's happening at coin number 2? And like I said, I'm going to go through these a lot faster now because we've sort of taken our time with Bitcoin. That's where people want to know where Bitcoin is. So let's look at this. What's going on with rule number 1? Rule number 1 says larger time frames dominate the trend. Which way is the trend? It's pretty clear it's to the downside. Now this one's a little bit different. It's got a ton of energy at the weekly chart. So this thing could at any moment break higher. And this is what the Ripple Army keeps insisting is going to happen any day now. And it may become a self-fulfilling prophecy at some point here, is that this descending pattern with this amount of energy may break higher and get above 60 cents. Okay, so that's rule number 1. Rule number 2, let's look at rule number 2. If we go down to the 5-hour chart, what would have to happen is we'd have to print a higher low and then ultimately a higher high above about 34 cents, as well as break this descending trend line for that signal to fire and say, okay, clear to go long, because otherwise we're just still going to be pounding on these lower highs. Okay, so that's kind of rule number 2 and rule number 3 kind of wrapped together. Okay, so that is Ripple. That's my view on Ripple, and that's what's going on right now. Again, it's very objective, right? You know exactly the price levels that you're looking for to know when the change in polarity has happened on that smaller time frame, and that signals the entry. But again, keep in mind that that's counter trend until we have the larger time frames. Anything to the long side right now is still going to be counter trend, but it may be very quickly explosive to the upside. Okay, number 3. Starting to get the picture here, I hope. Number 3, what do we have here at the weekly chart? Weekly chart, quite clearly, is in a downtrend with a lot of energy. So again, we may get a surprise in the short term because of rule number 2. Rule number 2 says that reversals happen from the inside out. So you guys can start to see now, if we print a higher low and then a higher high, which is above 114, and we break this descending trend line, that's rule number 2. Rule number 3, at the same time, we might get an explosive move higher. Although it's going to be difficult to get above some of the overhead supply, which is sitting at about $1.20, maybe $1.35 or so, and then ultimately up to $1.60. So each one of these has got to chew through this overhead supply every time. The overhead supply comes from people that went long, say like at 124, and right now are genuflecting, putting their hands together and saying, please, please, please go back up to 124 and I'll sell out again. I just want to go whole. That's what happens with overhead supply during a downtrend like this. This is why sometimes it can be difficult to get past that. Let's go on to EOS. You're starting to see the same picture for just about everything here, aren't you? Okay, so let's go back to the daily chart. Again, we have, well, the weekly chart has got a strong downtrend, so that keeps things in mind. That gives us our overall context of what's going on. We get into the daily chart. We see a descending pattern. We see a lot of energy here. This could break and move very quickly. Range contraction leads to range expansion. We're looking for that range expansion. If it expands to the upside, it could go so very quickly, but again, it's going to be under the context of a larger time frame weekly downtrend. Okay, so let's not be delusional here. Let's look for opportunities, but let's not think that this is going to be the bottom just yet. It's going to have to prove it to us, right? Have it prove it to us that it really, truly is the bottom. And one thing that I tell my members all the time, our premium members for our newsletter service, is that you don't get a medal for getting the bottom tick of the market. Everybody is just so transfixed and obsessed with trying to buy the dip and get that very bottom tick because they think that that is the key to success. It's not. The key to success is to go long on instruments that are trending higher in price. So stop with the notion of trying to buy the dip and dollar cost average, because that's why some of the professionals like Paul Tudor Jones will tell you that losers average down. Let's go to Litecoin. Litecoin, same deal. Look at the volume. Look at the bones. Look at the volume on that. Range, contraction, we got some big time volume. If we get a break above, I'd say 35, we may have a quick little pop in Litecoin to the upside. This will be a tradable bounce. So things are actually looking pretty good today. I like to see the green here, and we're getting up on some of them. Now, let's get into Tron. Tron has been a rock star lately, and the reason why I like Tron is because, look at this, we have a weekly swing. Remember what I talked about the other day, trade in the direction of the anchor chart swing. We now have an anchor chart swing on the weekly chart, which is trending to the upside. That's good. We're looking for those. We're looking for volunteers in the crypto space that are actually going to trade to the upside. And this one is doing exactly that. And it also has a fair amount of energy. Guys, I'll get to your questions at the end of the top 10 here. So we're about 2/3 of the way through. And as soon as I get through the top 10 here, I will look for your coins and I will do the same thing on those. All right. So I just see the chat window moving here in the peripheral vision, and I don't want to ignore anybody, but I can't take your questions just at this second. So as we go into the daily chart, what we're seeing is a fairly strong, this is kind of a consolidation pennant, but that's within the context of a weekly swing to the upside. So this one really looks pretty good. This one looks pretty good, but obviously for this one to break higher, we're going to have Tron versus the US dollar. We're going to have to have this trade above like 30 cents or so, break out above 30 cents. You know, a lot of people will say, yeah, but you could have got it at 14. I don't care. Look, the potential of these things is so much higher than that. So whether you get it at 14 cents or whether you get it at 30, to me is immaterial. Don't focus on getting the bottom tick. Let's go to Stellar Lumen. This one is not doing so hot. So as we look at the weekly chart, and it pains me to say that because look at this enormous flag pattern here. This is more of a flag or a pennant pattern, which is at the weekly chart. There's a tremendous amount of energy in that one, and it's still playing out, although it's now into exhaustion. So we might start to see some type of relief bounce from this one. So this is versus the US dollar. Right now it's down to coming up on 8 cents. Come on, Let's go. All right, so this one definitely, the anchor chart trend is to the downside. There's no hiding it here for that. We have a descending pattern. Might break to the upside. It's in exhaustion right now, so we may get a surprise to the upside, but it's going to be awfully hard to fight that anchor trend to the downside. This one is disappointing, to say the least. I'm not going to spend too much time on BSV here at this point. Really the same pattern as everything else. Let's go into Cardano. I like Cardano a little better because we've got a weekly chart, which is starting to show a little bit of life, right? We've started to move up a little bit. Now that can just be a lower high in the weekly chart. We don't know that yet. We don't know if that's just a lower high setting up, or is this a higher low that's going to turn into a higher high? Don't know that yet. Can't tell. We're not here to predict the future, believe it or not. That's what a lot of people think technical analysis is. It couldn't be farther from the truth if you're doing it right. You are looking for specific objective signals that are going to give you edge. So in this case, if we go, and this is versus BTC, so if we break above, I'd say about 1160 Satoshis and break that line. So again, rule number 2 says reversal start from the inside out. We can go down to the 5-hour chart, and we are going to have to see this break above, yeah, like I said, about 1160. Rule number 3 says descending patterns break to the upside. However, it's still under the spell and the influence of that large weekly chart downtrend. So this is going to be a challenge getting this one out. There's obviously, as we've gone through this top 10 here, there are some coins that are much stronger than others. I prefer that you trade the stronger coins instead of trying to catch the falling knife. You know what happens when you try to catch a falling knife on some of the weaker ones. And then I threw this one in here. It's not necessarily, it's just outside of the top 10, but it's one that I like a lot. Look at the weekly chart swing. Tell me what's going on there. That's a pretty strong swing. This is Binance Coin. This is Binance Coin. Now, Binance Coin still has a little bit of energy left at this point, so there may be some tradable swings in the near term. We have an ascending pattern, so some of you may say, well, rule number 3 says an ascending pattern is going to break to the downside. It could do that. It could do that on the, let's go, on the weekly chart. We could actually have a weekly chart pullback. So this is going to be the first swing up, weekly chart pullback, and then the next wave starts to the upside. So we may be in the corrective pattern right now, especially as we got into exhaustion. Range expansion leads to range contraction. And the weekly chart says maybe this is time for a little bit of rest here because Binance Coin has gotten a little bit salty to the upside. All right. So again, rule number 1 says trade in the direction of the anchor chart swing. Larger time frames dominate the trend. We have a weekly swing to the upside. Good. That's good. Rule number 2 says reversals start from the inside out. So right now, potentially, this is reversing back down again. This is reversing back down again, but that may be part of just a larger corrective move that happens. So this is all kind of playing out. This is all making sense right now, at least the way I'm seeing it. Okay. That is the top 10. This is what we do every day. We go through the top 10. We go through any coins that are moving. We go through the screener. We look for opportunities every day. We use these same 4 rules. We focus on price, guys. It's not some magic study. It's not some magic indicator. Oh, we have this magic indicator that's out there. No, it's the choppiness index. It's just showing us the linearity of the move. There's nothing magic about it. You can also use the ADX if you want to. I prefer the chop index. I've been using it now for years. It's very, very accurate. Get rid of your overbought, your oversold. Okay, so it's about 25 minutes after. I will take about 10 minutes here of your candidate suggestions. So anything that you guys want to see. All right. So yeah, you wish Tron was 14 cents. JSnap. Cool. Bologna sandwich in a room, fellas. All right. You don't need no TA. That's awesome. Glad you're here with us today. So the Ripple Army is coming. Okay, waves, stay at home. Thank you. Thank you for rescuing me from yeah, whatever. Okay, so let's go into waves and let's see. We could probably do waves versus BTC right now. So let's go over, first of all, let's start at the weekly chart. And the problem with the weekly chart is we got this really bad tick here, and that's pretty common with the ICO. Pretty common with the ICO. So we're going to get rid of that. So waves on the weekly chart, lovely. Lovely swing to the upside, looks fantastic, but it's in exhaustion right now. So that's rule number 4. Range expansion goes to range contraction. So that is going to govern everything. That's our anchor chart on waves right now. So it's not going to go anywhere. It's not going to get anywhere for a number of weeks. It's going to have to, range expansion leads to range contraction. It's like you just did a 100-yard sprint, 100-meter sprint. Let's get with the times here. It's like you did a 100-meter sprint and you're absolutely gassed. You're bent over, you're holding, you're trying to get your breath back. It's going to take you a couple minutes and then you can start walking or jogging again, right? Or maybe for me a little longer than that, but we're probably going to need to see this consolidate for a couple more weeks at the very least, and then you'll see this start to build up again. And then we may have an opportunity for waves. Now look at this. Descending patterns, right? So we have rule number 3, descending patterns. We have smaller time frames. Look at the energy on the daily chart. It wants to go somewhere. So it may jump the gun. So if we see this trading, let's see, we're versus BTC reference currency. So if we see this trading above 9,000 Satoshis, this one may be good to go for at least a little pop. And maybe it's just going to bounce to the upside. It's going to bounce to the upside, give you a tradable swing for this. But this is a good example of a coin that is starting to lead the market higher. All right, let's see. So that's waves. I can't tell you anything about. So what I don't do, guys, let's see, NLG Golden Coin. So let's see. Let's take a look at Golden Coin. What's going on with this? Not much. This is just going kind of nowhere right now. Let's look at the daily chart and see if we have anything to work with. Okay, this one started to break out and has been in consolidation for a long period of time, but it's just not going somewhere. So sometimes you'll see a coin in range contraction and it just doesn't do anything. And that's because nobody knows what to do with it. So that's part of the problem here, is that we're not seeing supply demand like go crazy with this one. And maybe if we get rid of some of this, yeah, so we have a little bit of a swing, but to me, this looks like the beginning of a lower high once again. So right now, I would avoid this one until it starts trading and trending on the weekly chart to the upside. So that's Golden Coin. All right, let's see, Raven Coin. People want to know Raven Coin. So there's Raven Coin versus BTC. Let's see what we got here. All right, so on the weekly chart, what do we have? What's going on? You guys tell me. What do you see here for a trend on Raven Coin? I don't want to sully your coin. I don't want to insult your coin, but I look at this and I see nothing but a weekly downtrend. I don't see any opportunity right now in this one at all, unless you're of the mind that you love to get the bottom tick of the market. But right now, this is something that cannot get out of its own way at all. That's a Raven Coin. So I would avoid until this thing starts to trade to the upside. Okay, let's see. Let's see. Enrique is asking for Neo. Neo was doing really well for a while. Okay, so what do we got going on? So, oops, that is a stock. Let's try the actual cryptocurrency. Let's go versus BTC. All right, there we go. And what do we have for a weekly chart here on Neo? This one still not looking good. This is just another lower high. So right now, I would avoid this until we start seeing the weekly chart printing higher highs and higher lows. And let's see, icon. So ICX, BTC, kind of the same thing. So these were the rock stars of 2017 have been completely cast aside right now. These are still making lower highs, lower lows. I would not be accumulating down here. So I know some people will disagree with me, the value players that are out there, but what is low can go much, much lower. Don't forget that. Have I already explained the CHOP? Yeah, I explained the CHOP index in the presentation the other day. So today is more of just, I can't stop and explain what the choppiness index is, although a good Google search will show you that it was written by E.W. Dreiss, and it shows the linearity of the last X number of bars, typically 14. And so linearity means that a linear trend is something that's straight, like a straight line, takes a lot of gas out of it. A nonlinear trend like this one adds energy to it. Okay, chop, 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 chop. All right, Digibyte. People want to look at Digibyte. So I'll do a few more coins here. Digibyte BTC. What's going on with Digibyte? What do we see here for a weekly trend? Okay. This stuff is not hard, guys. It's not difficult. It's not a matter of me seeing something in there that's not there, right? It's not subjective. You look at this and you say, what's the trend? This is what kills me about people that hate TA. They hate TA or technical analysis because they're using it wrong. They think that technical analysis, or somebody has told them that technical analysis is predicting the future. It's not. What do we see when we look at this? We see a weekly chart. Rule number one, right? Larger time frames dominate the trend. So trading against this, trying to trade long right now on Digibyte is not going to be a healthy experience, right? Unless you can short this, this is going to be a frustrating experience until this starts to trend higher. So this is why I always say, guys, I like to trade. I like to go long on things that are heading higher in price. It's just very simple. I can't do Digitex on this version of TradingView, unfortunately. Digitex ladder when? I wish I had that right now. I wish I had Digitex to trade with right this very second. Can't wait. Okay, Zilliqa. Tony. How we doing, Tony? Let's look at Zilliqa. ZLBTC, I believe. Yeah, there we go. So Zilliqa. This one's interesting because, again, I've got the weekly chart here. Got the weekly chart. What do we see? What do we see? We see a price that's gone from a lower low up to a higher high on the weekly chart. So what's going on here? Is this just a really harsh pullback? Let's go in on our time frames here and see if we can figure out what's going on. All right, so here was a weekly chart, a weekly swing that was really getting somewhere, and all of a sudden it's getting destroyed. Okay? That's pretty normal. This is what it's supposed to do. Now, if it continues doing this, right? So if it keeps doing something like this, then all that is just a lower high in the weekly chart. But if we get if it's a muted response that goes into consolidation here, then maybe that is just a higher low in the weekly chart. We don't know the answer to that yet. But right now, this is where we hold back and we let it see what it wants to be when it grows up. So that would be my advice on Digitex. All right, let's see who's got one next. I see DNT. Dog November Tango. I am not familiar with that one. District 0X. All right, so again, let's start with a weekly chart. What do we have on the weekly chart? We have an unholy mess on the weekly chart. This is a chart that's just going nowhere. So again, for something like this, if it's not trending to the upside, I want to wait until it starts trending to the upside. I am not going to be sitting there rolling around in the gutter trying to find out where the bottom tick is of this thing. I'm going to wait until it starts to show me some intent and some enthusiasm, as Al Capone would say, to the upside. So right now, wouldn't be interested in this at all. Okay, I just did Zilliqa. All right, nulls. I remember nulls. Let's do nulls here. Okay, so what does rule number 1 of risk management say? Or not risk management. Rule number 1 of price action says descending patterns, right? Rule number 1 is that larger time frames dominate the trend. And what we have here is we have a pretty strong larger time frame trend to the downside. Now we do have a little bit of excitement down here and some volume. If this is able to hold that higher low and then print a higher high above that, maybe we got something. But prove it. Don't jump on the very first green candle that shows up, which is just a pump more than likely, or a rumor. Let these things prove it to yourselves, right? So a lot of these, like, again, I'll give the example of Tron. Tron is, to me, showing me that this is worthy of me looking at and showing me, hey, there's something here. There's something here. But the other ones that we're looking at here are just, a lot of these are just going nowhere right now. All right, so let's see. Let's do a couple more here. All right, so people are getting excited about HOT. Don't know what this is. Okay, all right. I am not excited with it. Okay, so you could tell this is where the ICO hits, and then all of a sudden it gets destroyed right after the ICO comes. This is a weekly chart. What's the trend? What is the trend of this one? Not so good, right? This is a weekly trend. Rule number 1 says that larger time frames dominate the trend. So we have a descending pattern here. Descending patterns will eventually break to the upside. Wait on that thing to break to the upside before you risk your precious capital on this guy. All right, I'm going to do my last one here, which is because I don't want to break my promise to you guys that I would have you out of here after a little bit. GBT BTC. Let's do GBT BTC. Genesis Vision. All right, I've heard good things about this one. Again, the weekly chart. What do we have here for the weekly chart? We have a downtrend going sideways. So what you're seeing here is, now this is important because this one could switch lower highs, higher low. So it's moving into more of a consolidation. Notice though that this swing, again, this is the weekly chart here, friends. This weekly chart swing has gone into exhaustion. So it needs to, from range expansion, go into range contraction. What you can watch for is see whether or not we're going to get some breaks above, say, like 14,000 Satoshis, somewhere in that area is where you're going to watch for this thing to break. And that may be fairly powerful when it does so. But there's no reason to jump on this one just yet. Okay. All right. What I will do is I will stick around here for a couple of questions. If you guys want me to here in a minute, I do want to remind you that my Crypto Masterclass is on sale until this weekend. So it's $99 today, $89 if you're a premium member with the coupon, and it's going to go up to $149. So I want to just remind you guys that is readysetcrypto.com/fractal. And then we've also got the coaching masterclass, which is the same thing, but it's also got 4 separate coaching sessions. And the cool thing about this is the next time I give this class, you'll be invited back as an alumni. So the sessions I did back in October, people are being invited back as alumni. So it's kind of it's the gift that keeps on giving. So the masterclass plus is going for 178 or 168 with the coupon for there. Again, not only the discount disappears after the weekend, I just don't list this class for sale starting Monday. It just goes away because I need to get people into the class so we can get it scheduled, get it started. It can't be one of these things, well, I'm waiting for the last couple of stragglers to come on board. Look, I get it. You know, it's money, but we're going to hold this thing and we're going to make it happen. And we're going to have motivated people in there. And this is why I want to get people in there. So again, readysetcrypto.com/fractal for the class itself. Or if you want to go big time, go readysetcrypto.com/plus and add the coaching element onto that. There you go. All right. So I'll just keep it on here and open it up for questions. So I'll stick around here for another couple minutes here and see what you guys want to chat. So what are the 4 rules? Again, the 4 rules were in my last presentation, which was a couple of days ago. So I went through all the 4 rules and I give a quick, let's go back here. Rule number 1, larger time frames dominate the overall trend. Rule number 2, reversals come from the inside out. Rule number 3, descending patterns break to the upside and vice versa. Rule number 4, range expansion goes to range contraction, vice versa. I know that's really quick. Watch the video that I did a couple of days ago. So if you don't know where it is, go to our YouTube channel for Ready Set Crypto. It'll be out there and it looks like that. Trade like a pro. 4 powerful rules for charting crypto. Okay, any other questions that you guys want to bring up? Any other questions for today? Hope everybody has a great weekend coming up or something planned. In the United States, we have the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl. You know, it's funny because it's like, I think everybody's like, oh no, here comes Tom Brady again. But I'm embracing it this year because it's like 20 years from now, we'll say, you know what? I got a chance to watch the greatest of all time. Yeah, Tony, if you did the coaching, yeah, you'll be invited to the coaching sessions again. So Cisco, what is the best bet for solid gains? And I don't want to sound flippant here. I don't want to sound like I'm mocking the question or anything, but I'm dead serious with this. If you want something that's going to provide solid gains, then find a crypto coin or any asset for that matter that is starting to trend to the upside. Don't pretend that you're going to catch the very bottom tick of any particular market. That's the best advice that I could give you. So whatever that is right now, and right now is really tough because the overall downtrend is really affecting everything. It's kind of holding a gravitational pull on just about everything. And anything that does have the temerity to break out is getting pounded back down. But with that said, there are tradable swings in this market. You just have to know how to find them. Brady. Okay, let's see. One more question here, and I'll let you guys go for the weekend. And don't forget, again, those 2 links are readysetcrypto.com/fractal or readysetcrypto.com/plus. If you go out to our store right now, you will see them at full price. I don't want you to pay full price. Go to the links that are here. That's where you get the discount. All right. Lorenzo. All right, so this will be today's last question. Any advice to profit from crypto option premiums once options become more available? Great question, Lorenzo. There's 2 things. So first of all, liquidity. Liquidity, right? That is going to be so important that if you go out to something like Deribit right now, so Deribit is a company that's based in, I think it's in the Netherlands, and they will do options on BTC, But you look at these things and they're just the spreads. You could drive a truck through them between the bid and the offer. And that is no way to trade. You don't want to be doing that. And I've actually gone on to a Ledger X, which is another options broker out there. And there's people that are begging in the chat to like be released of, they'll either buy or sell some option. And they're just looking for somebody to take the other side of it so they can be released of it. That is no way to trade. So liquidity is going to be everything when it comes to that market. And then, of course, there's going to be understanding the differential between implied volatility and realized volatility, but way beyond the scope of today's session. So those will be the things that I look for when I get to that point. And I want terrific execution when it gets to that, as well as the standard tools to be able to map out the implied volatility. So right now it's going to be a very, very immature market. Futures are going to be, I think, the derivative of 2019. Futures contracts will be the derivative of 2019 and will explode. All right. Everybody, thanks so much for attending here today, our trade school, and letting me do a little bit of work here with the 4 rules. I hope you learned something from today. I hope you guys have a great weekend. You guys stay dry, stay warm, stay everything, stay frosty. And I will look forward to talking with you guys again at some point in the future. You guys take care now. Ta-ta. There goes a sight from my soul.